Yeah, I was born December 1974. My actual March 28th, I was supposed to be born.
Oh, so you were extremely premature.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, she aborted her.
She had somebody kick her or something.
She tried to kill her. Didn't she tell you that? I tried to kill you before you were born, and I'm so sorry it didn't happen.
Well, she was living in Sibique, Arizona, on the reservation. And she had her brother drive her to the Phoenix Indian Hospital because she didn't want anybody on the reservation to know
That she had done that.
And then what? Yes. Years later, that was where you came and got me at that Phoenix Indian Hospital.
Yeah.
Then you said that it was 5 months before you got custody. What happened in between those? You were obviously in the hospital for 3 months?
More than that.
Well, actually more than that because I had pneumonia as well.
Okay.
From being so premature.
And did you go to a different foster home then before you came to this home? Or? No, it was straight from the hospital to your hands.
Yeah,
No,
but
no.
she had been home.
She took her home.
She
got her out of the hospital.
After, she was able to take her home. She did take her home. But somehow, you remember that policeman we talked to from the reservation that came? We had his kids for a little bit. He said, I have taken that baby to the hospital before. He says, it was abused. He said, that baby's been abused. He says, I know that baby. You remember he came
when he
down
came to the house.
Yeah, when he came to our house. He says, that baby's been abused. And he said she was in jail for it up there on the reservation for abusing her.
Oh.
So, and then she had a concussion. She had a
broken nose.
A broken nose.
As an infant.
Before she was 5 months old.
And so, and that is in only the few brief weeks between the hospital to you.
Right.
It could have only been a few weeks.
A few weeks. She had a broken nose, a concussion in one eye. She's almost blind in one eye from the
concussion.
Well, they said it was the eye doctor always says, oh, it's from an injury.
But it happened as an infant.
Probably what she did.
Yeah. Well, if she broke the nose, she was obviously there was damage to the face.
Yeah, there was damage to the face.
Yeah, as an infant.
Because they had to fix your nose.
Yeah.
But our federal government said that you have to go back to that home.
Right.
Yes.
She was an abusive mother too.
Yeah. Despite everything, you have to go back to that home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the
of course,
foster,
her teeth.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because she ggave her nothing but Coke to drink, she told me.
But when the foster home went up to see someone else,
They didn't even know about it.
they didn't know about it.
No, they come up and they said
they were going to see someone
hospital.
else.
Yeah, and they went up to the hospital and picked her up. The mother went over and says, I want the baby out. And when she came to us, she was really sick. And they didn't tell me what it was, but I took her to the doctor, and he said she probably has pneumonia. So
They picked up the baby, and they said, what are we going to do with it? With her. So they prayed about it, and for some reason,
our names came.
we already had kids.
Yeah, we had kids. Foster.
So that's how
Kids and foster kids.
kids and foster kids.
Yeah.
And they said we were supposed to have her. So.
Wow. After they prayed. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
Because you guys were the ones that really were going to stand up for her.
Probably.
To do everything it took.
Plus another thing she had when she came to us, which she had been in the hospital, so I don't know how bad it was, but she had a rash that was so bad that it was like bleeding. She was bleeding. You know, you probably have seen babies like that. The bleeding rashes.
Because they weren't changed.
No, they weren't changed. It's just pneumonia.
So that's the other thing that was...
I know, you probably know that one.
Yeah, so that was the other issue she had when you got her was a...
Yeah, she had that, and the doctor would say, just leave the diaper off because it was so bad.
Yeah.
You know how they did that.
And her
That was
skull's slightly deformed.
Oh, yeah, faces. One side of the head is deformed. From laying, they sit on one side.
And not being taken care of and just laying there continuously.
There's no flat on the side.
Yeah.
When we got her, when she came to us, we took her to she was pretty little. She was 6 months old, like 5 or 6 months. And we'd go to the grocery store. If there was an Indian in the store, she would pretend like she passed out. She'd just go limp.
Oh.
And I said, why is she doing this? You know, I couldn't figure it out.
Just a dark-haired person.
Or even even like a Mexican person, you know, a dark-haired person. And I asked the doctor, and he said, that's because it means abuse, and if I'm passed out, they won't hurt me. And it probably was. It sounded like it, because she would just go limp. She,
about 6 months old, she'd just go limp.
yeah. When she saw anybody that, remember Adeline's, well,
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
when you ran away,
Oh.
that there was one of my nephew married a girl from Haiti, and her mother came to the house, and she was like 2 years old, about 2 years old. She saw her, and we didn't realize it, and she just disappeared, and she hid. So we almost called the police. We finally found her under a bush. She hid under a bush because she thought this dark-haired person was going to take her.
Yeah.
So it's, even though they're that little, she still had that memory, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
She took, the mother came and got her when she was 10 months old. We had her at 5 months old, and then at 10 months old, she came and she said, I'm going to take care of her, and she took her back. Because she said she wanted to go to court and get money from somebody, from the dad, she said. But that wasn't the dad.
No.
And that's why they were having a fight, and she wrote a letter and said they want to kill her. And but the real dad had, I don't know who he was, but he was, I think she said he was, told her he was white. And she hated him because he was white, you know.
But you don't know, you'll never know what the truth is.
We don't really know if this is true. And then she told me he died. You know, nobody knows.
Right.
But she took her up there for 2 weeks to take her to court. And then she wrote me a letter and said, if you want her, come get her. She didn't want her.
Yeah.
But when we went up there, she was back in that state again, you know, like out of it.
Oh,
It's
poor
just
thing.
like she was limp again. But when I went in there and she was laying on the couch, she looked at me and just started crying.
Oh.
You know, I picked her up and she was just crying. And I had sent her in this little orange pajamas, you know, they had pajamas. And she still had it on. And when I got home with it, I turned it. It was inside out. It was dirty, so she turned it inside out and put it back on. I didn't change her clothes. She had her diaper rash again.
Wow.
And then that was the last time she ever.
So then you guys decided to adopt after
Well,
that?
after she was almost 2, we said,
Yeah.
this is silly. We never hear from her.
Yeah.
But we found out where she was.
Yeah.
There was somebody we knew that knew a policeman.
No, you called the 700 Club. That was on the radio. People.
That's right.
And you said, do you know how we could find her? And they said, well, I know a policeman that works in that area.
That's right.
And maybe he, in that Dallas area. And maybe he can locate her. And it was within an hour he found her.
Wow.
In the rain.
In the rain, it was raining. He found her walking down the street. At first, well, this woman said on the phone, she said, I'll go over there. And then she called us back. She said, I can't go in there. It's too bad of an area. But she sent another guy. And she said, it kind of scared me because for a cop to stop her on the road, she told us that. And that's how we found her, to even go down to a doctor, to talk to her. And that's how we got her address. It was just like within an hour we had it. That's before computers. Yeah. She was really nice then, you know, when she gave her, oh, I know you're going to love her and take care of her, and this is you'll raise her. And
We had some kind of papers with us.
yeah, well, the adoption papers. We went to
Adoption
an attorney
papers.
on Sunday. It was
Right.
a Sunday when we found an attorney, but that was a miracle too.
So he says, excuse me, I'm going to read these to her in Apache so that she can't make a mistake on it. And he read all the papers to her in Apache.
And they talked it over in Apache. Both of them.
And even though she has a college, some kind of
Yeah.
college background.
No, but he wanted to talk to her in Apache. He says, I want to make sure she understands
Right.
that she's giving her child away, you know. And so they talked it over, and she after they talked over, she says, you know, we got to find a notary so I can sign these papers. Remember? It was her.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Yeah.
She's the one that brought it up.
But yeah, that's what she did. And then we went down there, and she said she had left the reservation because she would never go back because they were treating her mean and all this, and she was married to somebody else. And we went to a lawyer, he signed the papers, we brought them over, she signed them.
And that was all there was to it.
That's what we thought.
Yeah, okay. So how did they happen to come back at 4 years old? And
they found out that she had adopted. Well, what she did, she moved back to the reservation. And they found out that she had adopted her out, so that made them mad.
Oh, okay.
They didn't like it.
Okay. So was it the reservation that came then and started this up again, or was it her family? Or
No, it's the
reservation, yeah. All right. So the adoption had already been finalized. It had been finalized for 2 years, which should have made it okay.
It made it okay.
Yeah. So you went, you got your attorneys and started fighting it.
Oh, of course.
They would do things like there was a recess. We went out. I'd gone to use the restroom, and as I came back, I walked behind where the tribal attorneys were talking to the mother, and the mother was an educated woman.
Been to college.
Been to college, most pretty penmanship that I've ever seen. And they were telling her, now when they ask you a question, you hesitate and say, huh? I don't understand. And you have them repeat the question. So we get back in court. This is what was going on. And I told my attorney, and he told the judge about it, and I had to repeat that to the judge. They didn't seem to care. Then they had a witness who was the tribal judge, and they asked him something, and when he was getting ready to leave, the judge says, you don't have to leave the courtroom. He's a friend of mine. I want him to stay here and see how the tribal judge see how we do things. Well, if he's a friend of mine, if that's what the judge says, that's a conflict of interest there. But nobody says anything. So then they used, all through the trial, the Indian Welfare Act is brought up. Our situation was what, 2 years before the Indian Welfare Act came into force?
Yeah, we adopted her before.
Before that.
Before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how, but they used it against us.
Yeah.
It didn't even.
No matter what happened, they would use it against us.
Sure.
So, but
the judge, it would be politically incorrect to go against the tribe. So what the judge did, when it was just about time to finalize this thing, he said, instead of making a decision, I'm going to turn it over to the tribal attorney, to the tribal courts, and you go on the reservation to fight it, which is a no-win situation.
So you fought it as best you could for 3 years, and then he told you to send it to tribal court, and so then that was pretty much the end of the story. So they came and picked her up?
No, we decided we weren't going to turn her over, so we just left.
How did we?
Well, we had a detective that had went on the reservation, and he came back and he said, they wouldn't even, my attorney said, I'm not going to tell you what he said. And he said, don't, if she goes back, she will not be alive.
So we just packed up and left, went back to Texas where the adoption was legal. We hid out there. Our total source of income was collecting aluminum cans.
I just know that it was God's will, because he helped us too much.
my favorite, well, there was two.
Oh, there's lots of them.
Oh, really?
Oh, all of them, but the one where we got caught in the sand, and the other where we almost got hit by a car.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we had, we needed a place to stop, so we said, let's take this frontage road. It was outside of El Paso. We went down this frontage road that says dead end ahead, so we said, well, maybe we can stop there. So where the road ended, it was very sandy, and then afterwards there was a wash. So we just pulled off the road and pulled right behind the stop sign. It was one of these stop signs that's about 4 feet across. Mm-hmm. So we pulled behind the stop sign, and we said, well, there's no traffic here, there's no nothing, it's a dead-end road. So we went to sleep, and sometime during the night, something woke me up, said, move the car. So started the car up, and Nadine says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't know, I've got to move the car." So if the stop sign was here, we were parked this way. So I moved the car, went around the circle, parked right behind the stop sign, went back to sleep. And sometime later, I don't recall how much time, a car came by. And that thing was really moving fast. It came so close to us. It kept right on going through the sand. The sand didn't even hardly slow it down. And it went through a wash. It looked like the Dukes of Hazzard. And it hit the bank on the other side. And the lights are on, and you could see arms flailing in the air. You know? So I said, those people, I know they need help. So we left there, and there was an emergency towing service down the road. So I went over there and woke the guy up. And I said, "You've got a two-way radio. Get on the phone, get the police out here, get an ambulance, there's some people hurt." So he did that, and we went back the next day, and we could see, we looked at the area, and it still had bloody bandages and what have you. You could see where our tire tracks were, and you've got your tires and then about another 6-8 inches of fender. Then you figure another vehicle has the same thing. Our tire tracks about that far apart.
Wow.
He'd have hit us.
Wow.
Oh yeah, he would have hit us head on.
Wow.
So that was quite amazing.
He was going down the freeway, and he was tired, and it says, "Do not cross, don't make a turn, you know, you can't go," he wanted to go the other way, but it said, do not cross, you know, and he said, "I don't care, I'm going to do it." So he went to go across, and it was so sandy.
In a hill.
On a hill, it was like a little hill. The tires were sunk down so far in the sand, they were covered. They were clear down to
the bumpers.
The bumpers. And I said, "Oh, what are we going to do?" So I tried to dig it out, and it started snowing. It was in Texas. And we tried to dig it out, and it would just come back in. You know, the sand, you know, it just kept. And I said, "We're stuck. We're really stuck." So he said, finally he said, "I can't stand it. Get back in the car." And so we got in. He says, "I'm going to pray that we get out of here." So he says, "God, get us," you know, he just said a prayer about getting out of the sand. He started up, and we just went out like it was nothing. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that happened.
This was the divider between
The
the
two
highway,
freeways.
the freeway going this way and that way, and they were offset. So it was
I don't
about,
know how we got out of that.
No.
Well, I did this. It just lifted us up.
It just went like it was a smooth river.
We just went right. I mean, we had a lot of them. When they were on the beach, was
Oh,
it?
that was.
Tell her what happened on the beach.
We used to sleep on the beach in Galveston. They allowed that. That was a legal thing. And we had this old station wagon that was pretty beat up. I mean, you could see the street as you were going down the road and what have you. So this one day, we would get away from the rest area, which was our home base, and we'd go way down the beach, and that's where we would sleep. So this one morning, I get up and I turn the ignition on, the car wouldn't start, and I kept fooling with it, and I'm not that much of a mechanic, but I couldn't find anything wrong, and we finally killed the battery. And a pickup truck went by, continuing down the beach, same direction, past where we were at. So we said, well, we better pray, we got to get this thing fixed. So we prayed about it, and sometime later, the pickup truck came back. So I don't know if I waved him over or if he came over.
No, we had the hood up.
Yeah, we had the hood up. So he stopped, and it was 2 oil field workers. And the guy, one of them said, "You need some help?" And we said, "Yeah." I said, "The car won't start now. My battery's dead. Could we have a jump?" And he says, "Oh, you're in luck." He said, "My partner's a mechanic." So he starts looking at the vehicle, and he turns around and he says, "Your distributor cap has a crack in it." And we had an old junker of a car. So he says, "That's not a problem." He says, he had the same, it's the same kind of engine they use on the oil pumps out in the field. So he went to his toolbox and he gets a new distributor cap and he puts the wiring on, and that was it. Just, I mean, if I wanted a distributor cap like that, I'd have to definitely look at a good parts place, because it's an older thing, you know, harder to find. And he turned around and put everything back together. They got the jumper cables and said, hit it, and the car started right up. And she was awake and never saw them. Now that was odd.
Yeah, that was odd.
They had everything we needed. And then we said, no charge. Wait.
yeah, I wanted to give him some money, you know, and he said, no, I don't want any money. And I said, well, let me pay for the parts. No. And that was it.
But that was the odd part, was she says, there was no one there. And she was
Because they were there for quite a while.
seven.
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 Yeah, she was 8 years old. She should have seen them. And she couldn't see them, so that's what I thought was odd.
But they tried to find out where we were, and
But there was no really a court order to take. No, they tried to get the what was he called?
the attorney, district
attorney
yeah.
here in Tucson. They wanted him to sign something. It was a pickleball. Yeah, they would have us arrested and take her, and he refused to do it.
He had been to the house himself personally.
Yes, he had come to the house and interviewed me at one time. And he came and he said he could not do it. So that's why we didn't really have anything against
There
him.
was no warrant.
Because,
There
right.
was no judgment.
Yeah, right.
But, so we just stayed until they finally, after 6 years, they finally got a new district attorney and they did sign it. Like for 6 years we didn't really have a judgment, but they
Right.
were looking for her.
Right.
But they didn't have anything.
But we hid out. They had no idea where we were.
Right.
And somehow, I guess they had investigators come out, and they found that once in a while we would go to Tucson and visit the family, like at Christmas time. And then I found out that through the tribal attorney that was in charge of this thing, I found his phone number, and I found that the way the phone systems were, they couldn't trace a phone off the reservation. So I called him, and we were trying to negotiate things, and he said, "Oh yeah, we can do that." You know, I said, "You know, she's getting to be a teenager. Why don't we get this thing settled?" You know, and he was playing along like it was he was going to see if he could settle it. And in the meantime, he was trying to see what kind of information we could give him in order for him to catch us. Stretched out till they got the court order, and then they found
Yeah,
out.
after they got the court order, yes, they said because I didn't want to.
Actually be disobeying the law.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Right.
You don't want to do.
Right.
You
Yeah.
try to do the right thing, but
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we
But I didn't
left.
wanna-
We left Colorado. We went to Flagstaff. Contacted our attorney. He looked things up. He wasn't aware of what was going on, and he found that there was a warrant out for us. And if they caught us, they'd automatically take her, and we'd go to jail. So he worked out something with them that said, okay, he called us back after a certain amount of time and said, okay, we've got it taken care of. Nobody's going to stop you. You can, as long as you're coming in, we'll come in, and on a certain date we have to go to court. So we had no problem doing that. And the attorney's office was right near the state building, the courthouse. So it was like in the movies on TV, as we're going to the attorney's office, the TV cameras are there, you know, and that's where they took her. Of course,
she was 13.
and they promised her, you go up there for 2 weeks. If you don't like it, you can leave. So when they got her up there, that was the end of that.
So you were 13 years old.
Yeah, I was 13 at the time.
And how did you feel when this happened?
Yeah, that it was wrong. Nobody asked me where I wanted to live. And I didn't even know this woman.
Was it your mother that you went to stay with then?
Yeah, my birthday.
Your birth mother? Yeah.
Well, not at first. When I did go back up to the reservation, for the first month, I was living with a preacher and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I was supposed to really transition really quick from their house to her house, but it took probably a month or so before I could actually trust her. I felt like I could trust her or calm myself down enough to leave them. It was not 2 weeks. I stayed there for 3 years.
Right. And so when you reminded them of that promise that if you didn't like it after 2 weeks you could leave, what did they tell you?
That they never said that.
The news people in Tucson were really on this thing. It's on the, I think, NBC News. And she wanted, she says, I would like to speak with my attorney. And she named him Alex Gaines. Said, I've never been allowed to see an attorney. This was on the national news.
Sage said that.
Yes. So that raised quite a commotion. And it just kept going from there. But what it was, Dr. Goodfield got a hold of Bill Allen and the NBC news crew, and they wanted to see her, interview her personally. That's when they went up there, and they also had federal marshals with them to protect them. And that's where more of the trouble started. Because there was a court order that we could not contact her, and they tried to say that we broke the court order and all kinds of things, and they wanted us in jail, and just kept going on with stuff. There was a lot of confusion.
What was her explanation for having taken custody of you back after she agreed to an adoption?
That she never signed anything. It was tricked her into writing notes saying that she gave her parental rights over to them. And that she always loved me and prayed for me and wanted her with a daughter back. That's all. That's what
Was her explanation.
That was her explanation.
Yeah. And what was your relationship? Was it a good relationship then at that point?
It was never a good relationship. I mean, sometimes it would be talking and laughing and joking, but she could switch like a light and just be mean and cruel and yelling and hitting me. And I'm not like every other person. I like classical music and musicals and things like that. So I had the highlights of the Phantom of the Opera blaring in my room. And she got mad at me one afternoon and unplugged it and said, I don't want to hear this, And she grabbed the cord and started wrapping it around her hands and coming at me. I mean, I was yelling, screaming, but we're out in Cedar Creek. It was just like nothing. It's like being out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Yelling for help.
Yeah.
Well, my stepdad came in and he grabbed her and threw her against the wall, and I ran past both of them, and I ran to the nearest neighbor's house and stayed with them for like a day. She could fly out the handle and hit me, punch me, say horrible things to me. It wasn't a nice.
What do you think the reason was that she had wanted you back?
Possibly the notoriety or the money that she thought she could get from all of this.
But your stepdad was a good man?
He was a good man.
Yeah.
He was a good man. He didn't think that I should have ever come back.
Oh, okay. So he was kind of on your side.
He was on my side.
That's neat.
But no one seemed to pay any attention. Until Bill Allen got involved.
How long were you on the reservation when Bill got involved?
I had already been on the reservation about 2.5 years. About 2.5 years.
Okay. Oh, okay. So then, it was about 6 months after Dr. Allen had been there that you finally were allowed to go home.
Right.
And he said he was actually arrested or something?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Okay, what was that about?
It was about the same thing. It was that same day after they tried to interview me, or they did interview me, and
With the federal marshals?
with the federal marshals, we kind of, instead of saying, okay, let's go off the bus and talk, I came off the bus and talked with them in front of the high school. And then Dr. Goodfield said, why don't you, like, flag us down, we'll take you home. Okay, so I kind of walked out of the way, so I was like, okay. So I got in with them, so driving, holding his hand because I was afraid, and he's holding my hand, and we're just, it was an amazing drive.
Was that Dr. Allen?
Dr. Allen was in the back seat.
Okay.
Scared, most likely. There was a camera guy in the back seat along with Dr. Allen. Dr. Goodfield was driving, and I was in the front passenger seat. And they were both all of them were telling me, this is an injustice. Tell us how you feel. Tell us what's wrong. And just as I started talking, I noticed a truck coming up from behind us. I don't know what that truck was doing, but that was my birth mother zooming past us. And I said, well, here's the turnoff to where I live. You can drop me off over there. Everybody gets out. My older brother, he's out of the truck too. There's the federal marshals circling the area. There's the NBC crew that was there, has all these cameras. Dr. Allen and Dr. Goodfield are trying to calm my birth mother down, saying that we weren't going to steal her, we were just talking to her. She's exploding, and I'm thinking, great, after they leave, I'm going to get severely beaten. How am I going to cover this? And then, I'm not sure what words took place between the adults. I guess the adults. I was only 15, 16 at the time. I wasn't paying that close of attention of the talk. They eventually leave, saying, hang in there, we're going to get you help, we're going to get your voice out there for you because you don't belong here, nobody asked you. Us in the truck, goes over to a relative's house, calls up the tribal police and says, my daughter has just been kidnapped. What daughter? And I was like, duh, that was me. You're telling a false allegations to the police that I've been kidnapped by these people and they might possibly have guns.
She told them that Dr. Allen would have guns.
I was there. She phoned in and I was standing right there. And it was only, I never heard about what else has happened after they left. All I know is what I had to endure is her almost frisking me to give me the stuff that they gave me. Because they had met you and Dad before.
Not Allen, not Bill Allen.
Not Bill Allen, but Goodfield had met with my mom and Dad. And they had given them a picture of my dogs at the time and a book that I had previously read when I was younger to give to me. Well, I had them for about maybe an hour, and then I took them and burned them. And then later that night, she had me go to the tribal police department and tell them what happened. And I was like, it was nothing. I talked to them. I said that I didn't want to be here, and I don't know, maybe she wrote out they had guns, and I don't know what happened with that, but I don't know, I don't think I was actually smacked around that night, but it's just...
So what happened to
what the tribal police did, they relayed the information to the highway patrol, and they said they thought they might be heading to Phoenix, to the airport. So between the reservation and the airport, there is a place near Globe that is a cut in the mountain. So they set up a roadblock, and what they did is they blocked the road, and they had people on the hill, what have you, with weapons, and they stopped. I guess it was two vehicles, a news crew and them, and they had everybody get out of the car, face down on the ground, and they were holding shotguns real close to them. And they said, okay, we need some ID. And Bill Allen says, let me give you mine. So he pulled his ID out. And of course, he was the chairman of the Civil Rights Commission. He gave the ID to this officer in charge, and the guy said, uh-oh. He says, we've been had again. I'm sorry, he says, this is an order from another district. I have to bring you in. And they said, we're trying to catch a plane. He says, I can't help that. So they brought him into the highway patrol office, which was down the highway from there. And they got things squared away. And then they gave him a police escort with the lights going to get him to the airport so they could catch their plane. But that was, they thought was quite a thing for the...
I guess that's the only time he's been arrested.
The only time he's had somebody hold a shotgun up to his head.
That's just one little instance of her insurmountable cruelty. Because there was many things said to me, but one of the biggest things that nearly devastated me when I was there, she told me that my brother, their middle son, that he had died. I was devastated.
Your son had died?
Yeah.
And I cried and I cried, and you know, you don't know how to control that crying. That
just to say something mean, you know.
just to say something cruel and mean, and told me that he died. She told me that. Then one time when she was actually physically beating me and slapping me, she told me, I never wanted you. I wish you had died.
Why she didn't just let you stay where you wanted to be then?
I don't know.
Dr. Allen had mentioned once that they finally agreed to allow you to go back, but it would be under the condition that nobody know about it until after you're 18. What brought that decision? They decided finally that you could go back?
It was a fight. And it was really quite ironic because I wasn't saying anything.
She didn't say she'd send her back. She says, I want you to see her.
Oh.
Yeah, she didn't say that you could have her. She said, I want you to see her, meet us in Phoenix. I was like, okay.
Okay, so you went to meet her and didn't...
But I had an idea. That's what she was
okay. But didn't know for certain. That is interesting.
Yeah.
So when you went to see her...
Up in Phoenix at the Indian hospital.
Okay.
She said, meet me at the hospital. So we went up there. She brought it out and said, bye.
Was that all the same day then?
No.
No, this happened. No. Yeah, it's over a period of time.
About after a few days.
Oh, okay. So she when she called you, it was like, meet me in 3 days or something like that. Yeah. Okay. So, and then you didn't know until that morning. And so, what did the tribe have to say about it?
Well, I don't know if they knew.
No, the tribe didn't know about it.
No.
So when we were meeting her in Phoenix, I think, wasn't it from Phoenix? I called our attorney and say, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
You know?
Because we're not supposed to see her. It would be against the law.
And if she's going to give her back to us, and he told us what to write on a paper and have her sign it. So we did. We signed the Eastons, but you won't get her back. So.
He didn't think it was going to happen.
I think so.
No.
So when we got her back, we just called them up and told them and headed back to town.
Sure, because then after that, to get her in school, I had to have custody of her.
Right.
So I contacted her and told her, I said, I'm sending you a paper to sign, giving me custody. And I said, if you sign this so she can go to school, she signed it again.
Twice.
Twice.
Yeah.
I mean, she gave it to her. She gave her back.
She had told you to pack to leave.
Yeah.
So you had everything with you.
Yeah.
And when you guys picked her up, she had everything with her.
Yeah, she had her suitcase.
We were on probation.
Yeah, we were on probation.
Probation for interfering with a custody.
Right.
During the probation, we wound getting her back.
Yes.
And I went down to the probation people who were extremely nice.
Yeah,
And they said, well, how are we going to do this here? You're on probation because you had this child. You're still on probation and you still have the child.
The next day, I took her down to the probation office. I said, and I was coming down the hallway, and that girl actually, she started crying. She says, I'm so happy to see her. I said, oh, I says, what do I do now? And they said, I don't know. It was kind of, but they were so happy. They were happy.
Yeah.
She got back.
Yeah.
They were nice.
That's neat.
Because they thought it was ridiculous too.
You had a legal adoption. Then when it went back to tribal court, what was the adoption vacated then?
I don't know, we never went. We didn't.
We never went to tribal court.
Okay, so what
We never went. We just didn't.
what happened with the adoption? Did it was
They broke it.
the adoption was broken?
Mm-hmm.
So have you readopted?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we waited until she was 18, and I said that way there's no problem. Yeah, twice.